All right, and we will go ahead and get started. So again, welcome everyone to this event hosted by CDE titled Stability Drives Success, the Student Homelessness Crisis. We do thank you for joining us. My name is Eric Dunk. I'm a legislative representative with CDE in the Government Affairs Division, and we have what we hope is going to be a great agenda for us today. So what we've done here today is we've gathered a large group from a diverse audience. We have folks from school districts, we have legislative staff here, we have directors from nonprofits, and a variety of other folks that are working on homelessness issues. So again, we thank you for your time and expertise, and we look forward to learning and problem solving together. Um, and yeah, you can see here on our agenda the way that this is going to be structured. First, we're going to have this main session here where we're going to hear some remarks from the superintendent, from Assemblymember Jackson, and from some of our panelists about issues related to student homelessness. After the main session, we're going to transition into breakout sessions. So there'll be a transition after the main session where we'll all get into breakout groups and we'll give you a little more details about what that's going to look like later on in the presentation here. And then after that, we're going to transition back to the main group with everyone, where we're going to do the share outs from the breakout rooms and what was discussed. And after that, we will adjourn. So that's the agenda today. Next slide, please. Just wanted to highlight the goals of today's webinar. Today, we want to build a shared understanding of California's student homelessness crisis. Very important issue that we've been working on at CDE. So we're invited all of you to get a shared understanding of what that looks like. We'll also talk about the gaps in California's emergency housing infrastructure. And we're going to talk about a couple legislative and budgetary items as well. We're going to discuss AB 673 and the $116 million investment in McKinney-Vento supplemental funds that was issued in the state budget. And last, we're going to strengthen the connections between LEAs, housing providers, advocates, and policymakers. So those are the goals of today's webinar. And so what I'll do is I'll turn it over to our Superintendent Tony Thurmond for his remarks. And thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you to the entire government affairs team for your work and our communications team in assembling today. Our conversation today, as you heard, is about how we can help students in our state who are homeless. As many of you know, California has as many as 300,000 homeless students that we know of. And of that 300,000, at least 10,000 that we know of are unaccompanied and on their own. These are youth who may be couch surfing, doubling up with others. And what we do know is that there are limited shelter opportunities for these youth, something around the order of 130 shelter beds for 10,000 youth. And what we also know is that homeless youth today will become homeless adults tomorrow without help. We know that in spite of not always having a stable housing or a roof over their head, many of these youth continue to go to school. In spite of their challenges, they find a way to show up, but they deal with challenges that can lead to chronic absenteeism or health issues, achievement gaps, you name it. We set out to do what we can to help this group of youth, and we need your help to do that. So thank you for making time out of your summer. You are part of the solution. Whatever you can share with us will help us work to build a better system to support these youth. As Eric has highlighted, we're proud that the state budget this year that has been passed includes some $116 million from McKinney-Vento funds and to create a pilot for how to help the unaccompanied minors. But to be clear, we're looking to go further than that. To be clear, that I sponsored AB 673 out of a desire to go beyond just providing shelter beds to homeless youth. We want to provide them with permanent housing and supports. And we realize schools can't do that, but we do believe that schools can be part of the solution in partnership with other agencies, social service agencies. We know that we can create solutions for this group of youth. A long time ago, before I was elected, I worked full time working with emancipated foster youth, and I saw many of the challenges that this group of youth faced. I also saw the benefits when we were able to fund transitional housing with built-in supports for these youth, the wraparound supports that they need. We saw the success that many youth have. And so we want to be able to do the same thing for California students who are homeless. So we thank you for being here. We thank you for supporting AB 673 and for providing us feedback. What are you seeing as it relates to the students that you work with who are unhoused? What do they need and how can we help them? That's our mission today. That's our agenda today. And we're grateful that you will be in some of our breakout groups to have some of those conversations. In just a moment, you're going to hear from Assembly Member Corey Jackson. We're grateful that while he's not here today, that he has authored the bill and been our partner on the bill. And we hope that you will continue to partner with us as we go forward in trying to find solutions for California's unaccompanied homeless minor youth. And without further ado, let me turn it over to our team to tee up a video message from Assemblymember Corey Jackson. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Superintendent. And just wanted to advise everyone to turn up their volume. The video is a little soft. We appreciate your patience and just make sure you turn up your volume as we play the video. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to join you today. I want to thank State Superintendent Tony Thurmond, the California Department of Education, and everyone who helped organize this important summit. I also want to thank the educators, advocates, school staff, and community partners who work every day to support students experiencing homelessness. Every child deserves the opportunity to succeed and thrive in school. But it's difficult to focus on homework, prepare for graduation, or plan for the future when you do not know where you're going to sleep at night. That is why housing stability is not just a housing issue, it is an education issue. When students have stability, they are more likely to attend school consistently, stay engaged in the classroom, and reach their full potential. Today, California schools have identified approximately 10,000 unaccompanied homeless youth. Yet statewide, there are only about 130 licensed emergency shelter beds that are available for young people, and those placements are only temporary. This gap is unacceptable, and it demands action. That is why I'm proud to be an author of AB 673, a pilot grant program that helps local educational agencies connect students experiencing homelessness with community organizations and licensed housing providers. Schools are often the first place where a young person's housing crisis becomes visible. And AB 673 helps ensure that schools are not left trying to solve that crisis alone. Instead, it builds partnerships that connect students to housing resources and supports they need as quickly as possible. This year, California also made a historic commitment by investing $130 million to support homeless youth initiatives. Those dollars represent an important opportunity. We must ensure this investment expands access to emergency and temporary housing and strengthen partnerships between schools and trusted community organizations. When we align these resources with efforts like AB 673, we can create real pathways to stability for our students. Solving youth homelessness requires all of us working together. Government can't do it alone. Schools can't do it alone. Community organizations cannot do it alone. But when we all work together, we can build a system where every student has the support they need to learn, grow, and succeed. So thank you again to Superintendent Thurmond for his leadership and to everyone participating in today's summit. Thank you, and let the work begin.
Great. And our huge thanks to Assemblymember Jackson for recording that address to the summit. I really appreciate it. So, where we're going to turn next now is we have a lineup of panelists who are going to speak on their shared experience from the different work that they do on this issue. So first, I'm going to invite Claire, who's the Executive Director of Family Promise of Riverside, for her remarks. Thanks, Claire. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, amazing student champions. I'm so grateful that you've taken this moment out of your very busy schedule getting ready for the upcoming school year to really gain some laser focus on our most vulnerable student population. I don't have to tell you how talented and how insightful our students who are experiencing homelessness can be. But I do want to challenge us as we begin to make the copies and create all of the beautiful spaces to encourage education, which is really important in each and every one of our districts, to really think about how you will create a pathway for our unhoused students, particularly those who are unaccompanied, to find success this school year. I happen to be blessed to be the executive director of Family Promise of Riverside. We are an organization serving all of Riverside County, specifically focusing on unhoused students and their families. And we could not do the work we do as a nonprofit without the strong partnership of the McKinney-Vento teams at every district. And while I know each district has different resources, the role that you play in educating both faculty and staff, both teachers, administrators, and supervisors on your campuses about the opportunity that we have to bolster the support for unhoused students is so critical during these next few weeks so that when that janitor comes across a student who is ready to share about their hardship, or when that school counselor is engaging with a student, maybe bouncing from couch to couch, or maybe even when that attendance aide is seeing some chronic absenteeism, they have the resources to activate immediately. We could not find family stability without school. School is a critical place for young minds to grow, to be exposed to every opportunity, and particularly our students that fall under the McKinney-Vento teams, especially our homeless students and our unaccompanied homeless students. Those students need our keen eye, our sharp access to policy and resources, and true partnership throughout the school system and reaching out and branching into our communities, whether that be city resources or other nonprofit organizations. So I want you to dive in today, engage in your breakout, take really great notes, and then sit down with your team and decide how you will prepare your school environments to be equitably thriving for every student, despite their housing stability or instability. What resources does every member of your district staffs need at their fingertips in order to activate the moment that child has shared that they are housing unstable? Friends, you are the superhero in the life of a student, and school life matters more than ever for our students who are unhoused. So today, I want you to go ahead and put on that superhero cape and get ready to be the superhero in the lives of our students. Thank you so much for being here.
Great. Thank you, Claire. Really appreciate that. We're next now going to hear from Dr. Denise Miranda from the Los Angeles Unified School District. Dr. Miranda, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you to the CDE And welcome, colleagues. My name is Dr. Denise Miranda, and I serve as the Director of Student Support Programs for the Los Angeles Unified School District, where I oversee our Homeless Education Office and other student support initiatives designed to remove barriers to learning for our most vulnerable students. As the nation's second largest school district, LA Unified identified more than 18,000 students experiencing homelessness during the 24-25 school year. Even as overall enrollment has declined, the number of students experiencing housing instability has continued to rise, which is a reflection of the housing affordability crisis affecting communities all across California. Statewide, more than 300,000 students were identified as experiencing homelessness under the McKinney-Vento Act, the largest state homeless population of any state in our nation. Behind every one of those numbers is a child whose education is being disrupted by circumstances that are really beyond their control. I want you to remember that behind every data point is a teacher who noticed a student maybe wearing the same clothes every day, a school secretary who quietly helped complete a housing questionnaire, or a counselor who learned that a family had been sleeping in their car. These moments of awareness often become the first step towards life-changing support. And I'm sure all of our McKinney-Vento liaisons are aware of this. When we talk about housing instability, as Superintendent Thurmond noted, we're really talking about educational opportunity. Students experiencing homelessness continue to face significant educational disparities. During the 24-25 school year, nearly 35% of students experiencing homelessness were chronically absent, compared with 19% statewide. And our graduation rate for students experiencing homelessness was 76%, compared with 87% statewide. As we all know, these outcomes are not a reflection of the student's ability. They're the result of the barriers that housing instability creates. Every move, every day that they miss of school, every disruption makes it that much harder for students to stay connected, engaged, and on track to graduate. One of the biggest misconceptions is that homelessness is not always visible. In reality, most students identified under McKinney-Vento are sharing housing with other families due to a loss in housing or an economic hardship. They often arrive at schools looking like everyone else, making early identification, annual housing questionnaires, staff training, and most importantly, trusted relationships to be an absolute essential skill. Schools are uniquely positioned to recognize when families are in crisis because we see the students every day. Compliance with federal law is only the starting point. Our real responsibility is ensuring that students are identified early on and connected to the supports that they need to succeed. At LAUSD, that means immediate enrollment, transportation options, school supplies, clothing, counseling, mental health supports, and strong partnerships with our community organizations and partners. Most importantly, it means restoring something that we cannot measure on a spreadsheet. It's a sense of safety, stability, and hope. As it's been mentioned, no school district can solve the crisis alone. Meaningful progress requires the collaboration among schools, housing providers, county agencies, nonprofits, and philanthropy. When these systems work together, families are able to navigate services and more effectively, students remain connected to school and educational disruptions can be minimized. We're seeing the benefits of this collaborative approach in LAUSD today. Our pupil services and attendance counselors are co-located at community agencies throughout Los Angeles, working alongside housing providers to connect family with housing navigation and ensuring that students are enrolled and attending. This allows the access to housing services and educational advocacy to occur simultaneously rather than sequentially. Within LAUSD, our specialized student services counselors serve as educational advocates and case managers, ensuring that students remain enrolled, engaged, and on track academically, while their families are navigating some of the most incredibly difficult circumstances. In my years working with students experiencing homelessness, I've learned that what students remember isn't the policy that protects them. It's the caring adult who made them feel seen. As we continue today's conversation, I hope we focus on strengthening early identification, expanding cross-system collaboration, and investing in sustainable supports that allow schools to meet the growing needs of students experiencing homelessness. Because ultimately, where a child puts their head down at night should never determine what they're able to achieve in a classroom. Thank you very much, and I look forward to today's discussion.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Miranda. Now I'm going to welcome our next panelist, Zachariah, who's with the Alliance for Children's Rights. Zachariah, thanks for being here. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, all. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm really glad to be here and grateful to Superintendent Thurmond and Assemblymember Jackson for being proactive in their legislative efforts to expand resources to students experiencing homelessness. As was mentioned, my name is Zachariah Okenda. I'm the Senior Policy Attorney at the Alliance for Children's Rights. And kind of to jump off the last two speakers, I wanted to share briefly a little of what my own path to stability looked like as someone who experienced homelessness as an unaccompanied transition age youth, and why I think schools play such an important role in the broader communal effort to support young people. So I first moved to California on my own from rural Illinois when I was 17. And before that, I had spent a couple of years couch surfing and changing schools and living with different families. And even out there in Illinois, I had a teacher my freshman year of high school who let me live with them, her and her husband, for a short time. So definitely no stranger to the supports in both states here. But when I felt like I ran out of options in Illinois, I guess I was looking for a fresh start. And my teenage brain thought that a one-way flight to California somehow made sense. And so, more than anything, I think what I was really looking for in that transition was stability of some kind. And I knew I had a few goals that, at first I wanted the opportunity to finish high school. This was coming into my senior year. And then what was just on the horizon of my thinking was, for the first time, seriously considering what might actually come next in my future. And obviously, that could only follow having some stability in the first place. And so when I arrived in California after my housing arrangement I came for fell through, I enrolled myself in the Claremont Unified School District at the beginning of my senior year. And when I showed up by myself, I just told staff pretty plainly that I was new to the community. I didn't have a legal guardian in the state, and I didn't have a stable place to live. And the school district couldn't like solve all of my problems all at once, but they listened to me. They took me seriously and trusted me. And what I learned after is like they really leaned into this role of being a community connector. The principal and my school counselor sent, emails very informally to like faith leaders and business owners and the Rotary Club and other community organizations. And those community members would end up being people that, gave me places to stay, helped me with, clothes for school, bicycle for transportation, part-time work. I think most importantly, they connected me with like free therapy, which was the first time I talked about any of the trauma I had experienced and learned that there were actually ways that I could heal from that. I remember in particular my school counselor, Patricia Maddox, who had, I don't know, something like 500 or 600 other students assigned to her. And she drove me to the Department of Social Services one day on a school day so I could spend 8 hours applying for emergency benefits and food stamps and Medi-Cal. And, it was like all of those practical supports are together coordinated efforts that made me able to graduate and finish school. And then I graduated and went on to college and then law school. And eventually I built a career now paying it forward in my view, because I get to advocate for children and young people facing poverty, abuse, and neglect. And so, I was so excited to speak at this because I thought, wow, the theme of this summit resonates so deeply with me that stability drives success. And, I care deeply about my education. And I'm grateful that I had the internal motivation I did, but I did not make it because I was unusually resilient or I figured out everything on my own. I made it because people in that school recognized a young person asking for help, and they treated my situation with a sense of shared communal responsibility. And so I want to close with this, and it's really like three lessons that my experience taught me, or my takeaways. And the first is that youth homelessness can be difficult to see. Many young people are not comfortable coming forward. I'm really glad that I did, because asking for help was the only way I was going to receive any support. But to be completely honest, coming forward was like the most difficult thing that I'd ever done. And in my experience, I had, been taught growing up that asking for help could bring in unwanted attention from authorities in ways that, frankly, risk criminalizing my family rather than helping us. And so, that brings me to my second point, that when a young person discloses that they're on their own, like, we need to listen to that. We need to believe them and respond with a sense of urgency, and also recognize their agency in the situation. We may not know the full extent of the crisis they're experiencing or how difficult it was to open up. And then finally, the third lesson for me is that schools, do not have to provide every service themselves, but they are really the stable point of contact that brings the right people and resources together, formal or informal. So, I remain deeply grateful for the people who helped me, and I believe every student deserves a community prepared and resourced to notice them and respond and provide the stability that each student needs moving forward. And so, I hope with advocacy efforts and summits like this one, we can continue to build a momentum that kind of response can be given to every student, and because they deserve it. And so I guess that's it. Thanks for letting me share. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much, Zachariah, for sharing your personal experience. We really appreciate it. We'll go ahead and welcome our next panelist, is Jessica, who's the Director of Education from John Burton Advocates. So thank you for being with us, Jessica. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here today. So appreciate this conversation and you all elevating this important issue, which I think is often overlooked and under-discussed. I work at John Burton Advocates for Youth, and we are a statewide nonprofit advocacy organization on behalf of youth experiencing homelessness and youth in the foster care system. And we advocate for better laws and conduct training and research and policy solutions throughout the state of California, focused on improving the educational outcomes and housing needs of those student populations. So we really come to this work through the lens of post-secondary education. And as we think about students experiencing homelessness, we really are thinking about how can we, in addition to ensuring students are having their basic needs met, also that we are disrupting these cycles of poverty and ensuring that students are supported into post-secondary education, into pathways, into economic mobility. As we know that in today's economy, there is still tremendous value in post-secondary education as probably the best strategy to support these students and families, again, into economic mobility. And when we think about this issue, I think these students have been historically very under-resourced at the K-12 level to ensure that they have the necessary supports and resources in place to address their holistic needs. So we were so thrilled to see this new funding in the state budget. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for us as a state to leverage these resources and continue to make the case and show how valuable this type of funding is, and necessary to have, ongoing here in California, particularly as we think about our most vulnerable students, such as those that are unaccompanied homeless youth. And while there's, so many strategies in place that are needed to address the housing affordability crisis as it impacts students and families in K-12, we think that, definitely the education system has a role to play in this. And we've seen so many models out there where when we meet students, including unaccompanied homeless youth, where they're at their schools, a safe place, and we provide them with targeted interventions that are really taking into account the unique needs that they are facing around housing instability, crisis, and homelessness, that we can see how this leads to improving ultimately their educational outcomes, both through high school graduation and persistence into post-secondary education. Anything from, providing additional resources and supports to completing the FAFSA, transitioning into higher education, addressing, chronic absenteeism and things of that nature. And so when we think about this, it's also about the supports they can receive while in K-12, but also how we can strengthen that pipeline and that transition point for youth from K-12 into higher ed. We're sponsoring legislation right now, AB 2766, which will, among other things, ensure that students who have experience in homelessness have priority housing once they transition into higher education, and not just our CSUs and UCs, but also our community colleges. And that when they have to, for example, have to pay upfront housing deposits and fees that come in often well before they receive their financial aid, that those types of fees can be deferred and waived for students experiencing homelessness who simply just don't have the resources, so that something like that, an upfront housing cost and fee, won't deter them from enrolling and pursuing higher education. So we think it's, interventions such as these, as we think about that continuum of support necessary to address the holistic needs of these students. But as we think ahead, in addition to the funding that was dedicated in the state budget, I think there's also opportunities and strategies and solutions that we can leverage with other additional existing funding streams to better target and support these students. We have a large investment in our state and community schools with additional funding coming down the pike that I think can be leveraged to better support the students experiencing homelessness at those schools, to bring in the necessary resources and supports. I think another opportunity is for us to think about as a state how we can better leverage our LCFF funding. SB 114 passed and required that LEAs include targeted actions for student groups that were meeting those lower performance levels in the state indicators for this California school dashboard. We did an analysis of LCAPs to see, well, how is this looking for our homeless students? And what we found is that largely about half of the LCAPs that we reviewed weren't including the necessary targeted actions and interventions to support students experiencing homelessness. And that additionally, we found that and generally almost all of the cases that did have these services listed, there was an appropriate share of funding dedicated to those homeless students, proportionate to their overall student population. So we're seeing that students are still falling through the cracks. And I think there's ways that we can better think about our existing systems and supports and how we can ensure, again, that these students get the necessary targeted services to meet their unique needs and the funding necessary to address those needs, so they really have those services and supports in place. But really grateful again to be here today in partnership with all of you, and how we can think about better bridging and collaborating across systems from K-12 to higher ed and to the homeless services sector as well. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jessica. Now going to welcome, last but not least, our final panelist, Favila Blossoming Bear, the Tribal Liaison with the California Interagency Council on Homelessness. So V, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all of the inspiring speakers today so far. And I especially want to extend my gratitude to Zachariah for sharing your lived experience. It is truly an act of generosity to share our lived experiences with others. So thank you. So as mentioned, my name is Vavila Blossoming Bear. My people are from the Choctaw Nation, but I grew up here in California. That is a result of federal Indian policy. I'm an individual with lived experience in homelessness and in California's foster care system. And it's my pleasure to serve as the tribal liaison for the Interagency Council on Homelessness. So I have the privilege of consulting with tribal communities throughout the state, uplifting the needs, voices, and best practices from tribal communities to local and state spaces where tribal solutions can be integrated into public policy and programs. Tribal communities have shared with us that they are in crisis, and this is not a crisis of their own making. California tribes report the highest disparities of homelessness in the state, with communities experiencing up to 50% of their population homeless. However, they are rarely partnered with in homelessness solutions and are chronically underfunded. There are no current accurate sources of data on the depth of homelessness in California tribal communities. Most data cited is inaccurately described and does not capture the experiences of tribal communities. And this is occurring concurrently with public misperceptions that tribes are wealthy and do not require support nor funding. Stereotypes and misperceptions must be corrected and paired with respectful government-to-government relationship building and power sharing. Government to government, not government to stakeholder. We just concluded a year of tribal listening sessions throughout the state, learning from diverse tribal, formerly unhoused students and youth. They uplifted values of family, culture, belonging, education, and sobriety. They talked about the importance of tribal-specific spaces, places in which they had stability that were culturally responsive and safe as critical to their success. They talked about the importance of tribal-specific programs and people to help them as they navigate survival living in two worlds, one world native and the other world that of dominant society. These worlds are the opposite of each other. So like all of the youth we work with, they are also in need, dire need of affordable housing solutions within their own communities and economic opportunities to help them and their families thrive. The tribal youth in California today are tomorrow's tribal leaders. Yet, despite having increasingly higher education achievement rates, they continue to struggle with social mobility and opportunities to get ahead. So what do we do as individuals in government who value the inclusion and well-being of our California tribal relatives, the state's first people? Well, we understand that you bring a tremendous amount of expertise, and also we invite you to check out the state's first tribal homelessness policy brief to learn what we have learned directly from tribal communities. So we're currently working on a tribal youth specific policy brief like document that will support TA for Indigenous youth as well. So with that, I just want to thank you so much for the space and for all you do. I look forward to working with you further.
Great. Thank you so much, V. And big thanks to all of our panelists who you will have the chance to hear more from in our breakout sessions. So really appreciate all the inspiring remarks from you all.
This webinar continued with breakout room sessions. Thank you for your interest in this important matter. For more information, visit https://www.cde.ca.gov/sp/hs/index.asp.